Welcome to the Neuroscience of Magic. I'm Coach Anna Reidenbach, and this is recorded from a live play shop. I can't wait to share this groundbreaking information with you, and you'll be able to see my face in just a moment, but I wanted to give you a few tips here for your viewing pleasure to make the most out of this experience for you. And the first thing I wanted you to know is that this is coming from two different sessions. So we had two sessions to accommodate different time zones so we could welcome in folks from all over the world. And we had New Zealand and Australia and all over the US, from New York to California to everywhere in between. We had Canada, we had the UK, we had Europe, and so many more. So you'll see shares from people from all over the world. And I did edit it down just a little bit so that it's easier to take in, so that it's just a little bit shorter and you can get the information a little bit more deliciously. And I want you to know as you are watching this that everyone who shared out loud was in their full power, agency, sovereignty, strength, choice. I always record my play shops on speaker view. What this means is only the person who is speaking is being recorded. If you come to a live play shop, you can be on camera, you can be interacting with this beautiful community, and you don't have to be recorded. You don't have to feel like you're on, right? You can just be yourself and be in the community. And then if you're really wanting to share your insights and your sacred visibility and your sacred voice, you have that opportunity to share. Okay, so that's how we always do it, so that everyone is in choice and in agency. Okay, so this this is a time when I believe we need to share our courage and our truth more than ever. And so if someone speaks truth to you and you just feel it in your bones, I encourage you to share that in the comments. Sparkle up that person, amplify them, let them know that their share really moved you. Okay, that is my encouragement for you. Also, as we go through the play shop, if you notice that you're getting an insight, the best way to remember that insight is to write it down. And so that's a beautiful place to also share in the comments. And I do promise that I will read every single one of them. And it really does mean the world to me to know what you're taking away. The last thing I wanted to share with you is we touched on some very deep topics in this play shop. So I just want to let you know we touched on magic and we touched on joy, and we also touched on hate and racism and how we can move the timeline on that, how we can really have a better world for everyone. And one of the things that I like to do in the spaces I hold is really bring in some lightness and some magic and some ways to resource your nervous system so that you can be fully present and really be here in the conversation in a way that supports you and supports our world. And so one of the ways we did that is we had a prize wheel. Okay. So I know that you watching at home will not be able to win this prize, but what I'm hoping for you is that you just notice that there is this energy of prize in the air, right? Knowing that the people you're about to watch, that they all had this little sparkle, this little magic inside of them, knowing that there was this pot of gold on the end of the rainbow. Okay, so you can just take that energy into your own body, and the prize that was offered, the sparkles, the magic that was offered in this particular play shop, is a Gene Keys Soul Compass one-on-one session from my dear soul sister, Kathleen Nora Bauer. So thank you so much, Kathleen, for bringing your magic and your sparkle and your creativity into our play shop to make it an even more beautiful and delicious experience. And I do often offer prizes in my live play shops. So if you ever join one again, that very much might be a little pot of gold at the end of your rainbow as well. All right, with that, we're going to go into our play shop, and I hope that you receive so much from this transmission, and I hope it makes a big difference for you in your life, in your relationships, in your business, if you have one, and especially for this world. We are here for the neuroscience of magic, which are two of my favorite things because I love science and I love magic. Okay. And what if, what if there was a secret tool to tap into your innate magic and authentic power, to magnetize money and bask in love, to support your clients' success or your team or your employees or your kids, and to transform hate and racism in our world? Would you want that tool? I am Anna Reidenbach. I'm a creativity engineer and a coach. And I help visionaries, leaders, creatives, healers, coaches, and heart centered entrepreneurs make an impact that matches your potential by tapping into your unique power and destiny, and then crafting signature offerings that generate soul aligned income so you can change the world with your effing magic. So we're really going to be tapping into the inner magic today. Okay. So the secret tool I'm going to teach you is going to feel too simple. I want to just name this. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of how you could actually use this in your life so that we can feel the magic of it before I reveal it. So this secret tool that I'm teaching you has supported my client Laura to tap into her zone of genius and really create soul aligned groups that sold out, and it allowed her to create her first 100,000 euro year, right? That was in alignment with her destiny. That's from this tool. Okay. It supported my beautiful colleague, client, and sometimes coach myself, Valerie, who's here with us today, craft a framework for ease and impact across the different dimensions of her business, right? She has so many different roles, and being able to use this tool to craft a signature framework means that she can have so much more impact in the world. And it helped my client Tom tap into his values as a heart centered leader and create a company that is really in alignment with his values. And they're hiring, and people are loving the work culture, and it has a 7-figure valuation, right? So this tool, it can feel so simple, and yet it can really have profound impacts for you. Okay, so the tool that we're going to learn today is the one that helped these magical humans cultivate pathways of abundance and impact. It is tapping into and sustaining genuine, heartfelt, positive emotions, and then using those as a compass to guide your destiny. So that is the tool. And we're going to look at how I discovered it, the research for why it actually works, why it actually changes the world, and then what gets in the way, right? If it's so simple, if it's so easy, why are we not all using this, and what the solution is? What are we actually talking about with positive emotions? And this comes from one of my favorite researchers, Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. And we can be talking about joy and pleasure and delight, but it means so much more than this, right? It can be in our bones grateful, at one with our environment, savoring peace and serenity, sharing a laughter with loved ones, being inspired by great leaders, feeling the support and closeness of people we care for. And you might notice that especially these last ones are really comforting in times of challenge. So positive emotions do not always mean, quote, positive experiences, right? Our goal is not to ignore what is hard. Okay. It's not to ignore what is hard. It is to be with what is challenging and what is delicious in a genuinely loving way as we honor our own aliveness, because our life is being lived now. Okay. All right. Beautiful. And I truly believe that honoring ourselves in this way does help transform humanity into a higher timeline. And I'm going to tell you all the research. But before I tell you the research, I want to tell you a story. Okay, so this is my joy story. All right. And it begins with the happiest year of my life, right? So I'm 46 now, and when I was 34, I was living in Madrid. And this was my 5th year in Spain, and I was so happy, you guys. I was just in my body. I was alive. It was wonderful. It was delicious. And what made it exceptionally delicious, right, is that I had found a tool to help me, because I'd actually had clinical depression for almost 3 decades of my life at that point, maybe 2.5. And so I was working with a somatic psychologist, and I was happy for the first time in my life. It was the first year of my life when I was like, as an adult at least, where I was like, I am not a depressed person. And it felt amazing. And what was really, really cool about this year was, it really felt like every day I was like basking at the pool, right? And I wasn't. It was actually one of the hardest years of my life. A relationship that I really cared about and thought I would be with forever had ended. My visa was ending for this place that I had begun to call home, and I was going to have to move. And I got bed bugs. Like, it was a hard year, and I was effing happy. Okay. So, so it felt amazing, right? So I was like, ooh, this is good. Like, this is good stuff. So when it was time, I was like, I have this key. I have this key to the universe. And so it was time for me to leave Spain. And I was like, all right, what am I going to do? I moved back to California, where I'm from. And I was like, what could I do? And I was like, I'm going to get a master's degree in psychotherapy, and I'm going to support the world the way that my you know, practitioner supported me. I'm going to help other people do this same thing. And so I enrolled in my master's degree, and it was not what I thought. And so I'm going to take down this is just a deep story here. So I'm going to take the slides down. I know this is very cute, but so I had this so I was, I studied for about 3 years, and I was like, this just doesn't feel the same. This doesn't feel the same as what I received. And the moment that broke me was I was doing my internship. I was doing my internship you have to do a certain amount of hours to get your license. And I was working in this clinic for families. And because I was really fluent in Spanish at the time, the parents I was working with were Spanish speaking mostly, and the kids were English speaking mostly. So they had this, conflict between culture and language. They're having some challenges there. And all the kids had been abused. So it was, we were holding deep, deep things. And I was sitting in this room with my beautiful 12-year-old client, and she just, oh my God, she had so much fire inside of her. She just was amazing. And she was having all these problems with her family and her mom. And I, picked up we had this wheel of emotions. So I pick up this wheel of emotions, right? And show it to her, and I look at it and I wanted to throw it across the effing room because nowhere on that wheel was, this is what my magic feels like. This is what confidence feels like. This is me being a badass. It was like rage, anger, hurt. And there was this little tiny sliver that said happiness. And I was like, this is not going to give her back her childhood. This is not going to teach her to trust her body. This is not going to teach her to trust her pleasure. And this is not going to change the world. And in that moment, I transitioned to being a coach. Now, I do believe we can change things inside of the system. Looking back, I was like, oh, I could have, I could have maybe stayed and, done it inside of the system, but I chose not to. And so I began working with clients as a coach, and I had no business plan. This was like a reactionary decision. And I was like, okay, what am I going to coach people on? Right. And I was like, okay, well, the thing I know how to do is I know how to go from mild or even serious depression into joy. And so I'm going to coach people on that. And what happened was, as I did that, right, I felt so lost in that old environment. When I began to coach people on joy, it was magical. It was insane, you guys. They began to be the creators of their own life. They were organically, not even with me helping them. We weren't talking about this. They were making more money. Their relationships were flourishing. They were being elevated to leadership roles. Their companies were asking them what they wanted. And I was like, oh my God, I found it. This is magic. Right? And so I began to really study, like, what is this? What is this thing that helped me? What is this thing that is helping all of them? And now I use it in my life, in my business to really support people with their offerings. And so it's such an honor to be able to share this with you because I don't do this work as much with clients anymore. And I hope that you will because it changes the world. Okay. So before we go into the science of why this works, I'd love you to just take a moment to consider, just from that opening story, what is opening up for you? Okay. What do you notice in your heart or in your body? How could this be important for your clients or your team or your kids or your employees? Okay. So maybe just place a hand on your heart, maybe a hand on your belly, just noticing what's opening up in your heart, in your mind, in your emotions. Abby says more expansive. Oh, I love that, Abby. Samara says curiosity. Dara says joy as a tool for expansion. Yeah, right? Like it really helps us expand in very unexpected ways. Sue says joy to the world. Yes. Arlie says it honors my recent inquiry on what really lights me up. Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Right. Kyla says, I'm so in the right place here. I'm currently training to be a psychosomatic life coach and want to do the same and reach people trapped in mental health, right? Like, how do we, how do we, how do we add more tools, right? How do we increase the toolbox and add to the expansion? Yeah, beautiful. Elizabeth says more possibilities for lightness and joy. Romaine.
What I just absolutely loved about it was the realization of how you felt like the real need to step out of that process, even though that was the path that seemed like the right thing to do, to follow along, to get the qualification. But you just felt in yourself, in your heart, to go, no, I think there's another way. And that just really like is so inspiring. And I just think that that is like a fresh realization of kind of how I've been feeling these past few months. So yeah, so it just feels really like really magical and important, definitely.
Yeah, beautiful, Romaine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
your share. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. And I hope that, and I can see the inspiration on your face, so I can tell that it's going to inspire you to move forward. Okay. Okay, amazing, you guys. Do you want to see the research? Do you want to see the research for why this is magic, right? Not just because I think it's magic, but the actual research. Yes, yes. Okay. All right. Um, Beautiful. And Karen, I'll read one more. Karen says, it allows my heart to feel more open, and then I feel excitement about life's possibilities ahead. I love that, Karen. And there's possibility in one of the slides coming up, and I thought of you as I was writing it. And Samara writes, bringing in new possibility and trailblazing a new path. Okay, I love that you're naming possibility. All right. So, so one more quick note on positive emotion. Grief is part of our joy practice, right? Brene Brown writes, we cannot selectively numb emotions. So you don't get to have joy if you're not with grief, right? And grief is actually a really loving emotion because it's coming from loving and caring about something. And so we really do need all of our emotions to be really alive in the world. And if we're not allowing ourselves to feel them, it becomes like holding a ball underwater. Like if you have one of those like, air-filled balls and you're trying to like hold it under the pool, it's really, really hard. And toxic positivity in that case actually becomes toxic, right? Because it's just taking up so much energy that we could be directing in other areas. And it's actually very bad for our body. So just as I'm telling you this research, it is not to pretend we are feeling good. It is to find genuine, heartfelt moments of positive emotions and savor them is what I'm actually talking about here.
What I really get and what I'm getting in my life is the power, as you said, of holding both, because both emotions, because we're trained that it's either or. Either you're joyful or you're depressed or you're sad, and the real power is when we can hold both of those emotions and leverage them to move forward. I just wanted to add that.
Right. And what you say, leverage them to move forward, right? Hold, because the pain, right, can show us what we don't like or what we would, what we would like to redirect. And the pleasure can show us what we would like to move towards. And they're both really important. And not even to move forward. Sometimes they're just both important to feel, just to be human, right? Just to be human in the world. Thank you so much for that, Valerie. Amazing. Okay. So, what Dr. Barbara Fredrickson says about positive emotion is they literally change the boundaries of our minds and our hearts, how open our visual perspective is, and our ability to see our common humanity with others. So I want to share with you some of this beautiful research. And I have three little sections, and then we'll pause after each one and take some insights and integrate because I know there's a lot here. Okay. So positive emotion helps with creativity, it helps with resilience, and get this, guys, it can help with decreasing racism because it helps us tap into our shared humanity. So I'm going to share the research with you here. Okay. So this is what Dr. Fredrickson found. So they did these studies and they would show people this image, right, of, what you're seeing right here. And then they would give them an infusion of positive emotion or not. So they would show them pictures of like puppies and rainbows, or they would give them like a little gift. And then after some people got the positive emotion and some people didn't, or positive stimulus, they would show them these images and ask which one is more similar. Which one is more similar to the one you're seeing? And there is no wrong answer, right? They're both similar in their own ways. This one is similar in kind of a narrow way. You're looking at the internal part, and this one is similar in the big perspective kind of way. And so what happened is when the people who got the infusion of positive emotion, they said this one was more similar. They saw the bigger picture as opposed to the small parts. Okay, so it just literally changed how they were looking at the world. They also did studies with eye tracking. So they do the same thing, an infusion or not an infusion, and where are you looking on the page? And what they found is if you didn't get the infusion of positive emotion, you just really were looking at the center. You're just looking at the center of the screen. And if you got the infusion of positive emotion, you kind of looked everywhere. You looked to see what else was out there. You looked to see what other possibilities, right, were available to you. And so it literally changed how people were looking at the world. And so, what this means for creativity, right? And this all comes from Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. You can look up her research in her book, or she has videos on YouTube. But people come up with more ideas about what they might do next. They see more possibilities, right? So, there's more innovation, which we so need at this time in the world. Um, she cites this beautiful study that when kids thought of a positive memory before a test, they did better on their test, right? Um, Doctors were making better medical decisions, right? If they didn't know how to solve a complex problem and you gave them a little gift, they could solve it. Like crazy what this does for our creativity and how much we need this for the world. So it helps with creativity. It helps with resilience. Okay. People are able to bounce back quicker from adversity. And then what I found in my own work, so this doesn't have a beautiful study to support it, just what I observed, is my clients were able to utilize challenging experiences and transform them into an opportunity, right? If they had this foundation of positive emotions, they were able to be like, oh, okay, well, I learned something. Oh, I could go be braver. I could do this again. This is, I could do this, right? So it did that. And then this is just beautiful, right? If you look at the word reaction and you look at the R and the C, if you add positive emotion, you really turn that into creation, right? We're really moving from reaction to creation. Okay. And then here is something fascinating in the research. It helps us see our common humanity. All right. So Kareem Johnson was a student of Dr. Fredrickson. And this work that they did together found that when they did these little infusions of positive emotion, people were literally looking past racial and cultural differences. They were seeing towards oneness. And I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm going to explain this to the best of my ability, but please always feel free to look up the research yourself. But to the best of my ability, what I understand is they would show people faces, human faces of either in their racial group or outside of it. And they would kind of turn them upside down or do things so that you would have to look a little closer maybe to figure out if this person was human. And what they found is within our race, right, we just we know that that person is human. And outside of our race, it just takes us a little bit more time. And we're actually using a part of our brain that is different. It's not seeing the whole picture. It's like how we might look at a table, like, okay, there's like a leg and there's a chair, like a top, and okay, it's a table. And so they were using kind of a different part of their brain. And what happened is when you gave these, you know, infusions of positive emotion, that difference disappeared. Everyone just saw each other in the same way. So this is breathtaking, life-changing work. And, right, other studies have shown that hearts are just more open and people are able to create win-win solutions in negotiations. So I'm not saying it's the only thing we need, because obviously we need more. I have another little section about how we can deepen this, but it is pretty amazing. And I would call this magic. Right? I would call this magic if we could see oneness in our world. That feels like genuine magic to me. And so this is really what was helping my clients make more money and bask in love, right? Because they just were responding to the world in different ways. Leadership was coming naturally to them. They were taking risks, being brave. They were better communicators. They were, had open hearts, and life was just changing for them from this simple act of tapping into their joy. But I would love to know what's opening up for you here around creativity, resilience, shifting reaction into creation, seeing our common humanity. So maybe just again, placing a hand on your belly, a hand on your heart, just kind of noticing if anything moved you or touched you, if anything expanded you or opened you up. What might this mean for your clients or your employees or your kids? Hmm. Carrie says, I'm having this very experience through the last few months, realizing the power of amplifying my own joy, right? That it just shifts something inside of us. Yeah, beautiful. Arlie says, love that reaction to creation. Yes, 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 yes. Samara, simple is powerful. And these are foundations we can remember, right? It's like the world is turning right. Show me the way to your heart. Beautiful. Abby, yeah.
I'm really working on reclaiming that joy. And I love how you talked about that example of the students thinking about something that brings them joy before a test and actually doing well. And I know, like, for me personally, when I'm going to do something, and this is like a newer kind of shift for me that I've been playing around with, when I'm doing like, work that is maybe like emotional, or maybe I know that it's going to be deep. I do take a few moments ahead of time to really land in joy and think about something that brings me happiness, like whether it's like something that my kids did that brought a smile to my face, something tender about them. And it makes such a difference. And I know that you and I, in our coaching training, we're taught to really resource our clients before we go into transformational work, and really bring them into a place where they're feeling powerful and playful and joyful, because that's when the real breakthroughs really happen. And so that's been a really big shift that I've been playing around with, and it's been really, really good. It's come with some really good results. And it's something that I think I want to incorporate even in my parents. Yeah, it's something I'm learning, and then I'm teaching, my kids at the same time, because I feel that joy is resistance, joy is rebellion, in a world that we're taught, that everything has to be serious and perfect, and you're not worthy enough if you're not this and that, and like just kind of weaving that in, I think it's a sacred act of rebellion, and yeah, so really, really powerful workshop so far. So thanks, Anna.
I love that as a sacred act of rebellion, and joy looks good on you. Like I know, because I know you do such deep work, and you're like decolonizing like our world and decolonizing coaching. And thank you so much. Stephanie, yes.
Hi, Anna. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. So what opened up for me was bringing joy into areas that I hadn't really thought about it before. So in coaching and meditation and thing, that's, bring that in and really love that and feel that. But say in my workspace, where I currently am, I deal with feedback from people in aged care environments. So it can be complaints, praise, suggestions, and I just saw the opportunity here for the praise that comes in to be amplified in a more in a greater way, so that everyone who works there, going to have like a visual board where the praise that comes in, is just, instead of just saying, oh yeah, everyone says, thanks for doing a great job, it's up there and it's amplified and really sent out to those people who, are doing the work, and appreciated, in a genuine way, so that they can feel it too, hopefully.
Wow, that is beautiful. And I can feel what that does, right? Being able to see that for them. And then for even the people who are there in care. Oh, that is gorgeous. Thank you so much for sharing that. Arlie.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. This is beautiful. It's funny, I was I forgot, but I happened to be wearing this Black Lives Matter sparkly magical, shirt earlier today. The possibilities with the science that you're talking about, and how the infusion of positive emotion can open the perspectives to see a bigger picture, and to see individuals as individuals and not as, those blocks, those, fear patterns. I mean, very interesting doorway, to look, more into, as, one of the ways that we might help this world, because, healing racism is, something that's very important to me. Thank you for introducing me to this angle. It's a different angle. Appreciate it.
Oh, I love this. And I love your sparkly Black Lives Matter shirt, right? Because it's joyful, it's sparkly, right? It's like owning the power with sparkles. Amazing. Thank you, Arlie. Okay, all right, we're gonna take one more, and then I have a couple more sections that we're gonna get to. But Carrie, I would love to hear your share, please.
Just I'm in this wonderful position here where I'm my focus at the moment with work I'm doing with you is on unconditional joy this week. And I have a friend who's staying with me who's been plummeting into grief and depression. And it's just been fabulous to feel really resilient in his presence and be able to almost hold his grief in a joy that you don't have to go in there. It's almost like we've got this idea, or I've had these ideas, that joy has to be out while the other is in, which was in that. And to bring the joy to it and still remain completely empathic and inclusive of the grief. And it's almost like putting effervescence in the water that he might otherwise drown in. And just, it feels great, fabulously great, to actually feel that resilience in myself, that I don't have to sacrifice my own joy, that I can include someone's grief in that joy.
Right. I'm hearing that you're holding a container, right? Going through something, someone's going through something really hard, but there's this container of your own effervescence and your joy that allows you to hold it without getting lost in it. So that is beautiful. Okay. Thank you guys so much for your shares. I super just appreciate them. And I'm just taking a moment to be with the power of this. So thank you guys so much. Okay, so we're going to go into 2 more sections here. And I'm loving all the amplification in the chat too. You guys are sparkling it up, and I know this is deep, and the next part's going to be even just a little deeper, and then I will share a solution. Okay. So I want to talk about positive emotions as actually potentially important to our survival as a species. Okay, so I don't think we always think about this. So this is my perspective here. Okay, so you might have heard that negative emotions are necessary for survival, right? They alert us to we're about to be eaten by a lion, or we need to fight something, we need to run away, right? So I think we've all heard of that. And what we often forget is that positive emotions are also necessary for our survival, right? This is my question for you. What if positive emotions are also necessary for our survival? What if they're maybe just a little quieter? Okay, because maybe like if a lion or a tiger is right here, we need to hear the message from our body very loud and very quick. Okay, the other thing can wait a little bit longer. And so our body has learned which things need to be louder, but it's not that we don't need both. Okay. So, broaden and build is a theory of positive emotion pioneered by my favorite researcher, Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, and it supports us to understand the evolutionary role of positive and pleasant emotions. And I think one of the reasons I love her so much as a researcher is because she admits to not having been like a super positive person her whole life. So I really relate. And she really found this work and was like, oh my God, oh my goodness, like this could change the world, and really learned it. And so I value that. I value that a lot. Okay. So her theory, or what she brings to light, is once upon a time, it was really thought that only negative emotions, right, the ones that feel kind of icky in our bodies, were necessary for survival, right? They have these clear action impulses, right? Like they make me run, they make me fight, they make me hide, right? And so that therefore they are necessary for my survival as a species. It's what our ancestors are passing down to us. And what she found in her work is that positive emotions broaden our awareness that also create a range of action impulses that are actually vital for our survival. It's just more of our long-term survival. So I might be able to see a fruit tree way off in the distance, right? Because my visual, right, I'm seeing things bigger. And so I can see opportunities. And that might be really useful for my long-term survival. It's actually also wired into my nervous system and your nervous system, right? And they help us build our social connections, which also help us thrive and survive long-term, right? They help us connect with each other. As Carrie said, right, she's able to be there for this person because she has capacity in this moment. She has the energy to do it. And we need each other as humans. And so they help us build our social connections, which help us thrive and survive long-term. Okay, so positive emotions are needed actually for our survival, especially at this time in the world where we need more access to creativity. We need to see more opportunities. We need groundbreaking solutions for things, right? So they're important in this way. And then this is what I've been playing with in my work. Okay. So these are ideas that I've been developing recently. So please, they might be just a little bit brilliantly imperfect, but I'm really tapping into purpose and power and moving humanity forward. Okay. So purpose. I believe that purpose is one of the greatest drivers of the evolution of humanity. And I believe that training positive emotions is one beautiful way to get there. Okay. Because what I've seen in my work, let me just say this. And when I say purpose, right, we all have different purposes. So your purpose might be to help others be in positive emotions, right? It might just be to be out on the street smiling. That is wonderful because that helps our world. So whatever your purpose is, there's no hierarchy, right? And to find our purpose, right, I have found with my clients, it's much easier to access purpose, what lights you up inside, when we're able to access positive emotions in the body. So if you're a coach and you're trying to ask someone what they want to create, what their vision is, like what they want to do, if you can help them feel positive emotions in their body, that is going to help you understand what they really want and what their purpose really is. So often we find our purpose by just tapping into what we desire, okay? What feels good to us. So purpose is one reason I really believe that we need positive emotions in the world right now. The other reason, and Arlie and Carrie really spoke to this, right, is that positive emotions give us the ability to touch our own pain and our own power. They help us create a container. And so I really believe that part of why the world looks the way it does and why humans are being horrible to each other in some ways is that so much within us and within our world is still unhealed. And so when we're able to create this container, right, we can allow ourselves and our clients to touch our growth edges, to touch our wounds, to tend to grief, and if we're ready, to transform old beliefs and stories into empowerment. And so it creates this beautiful container that helps us transform the world. And I've really been leaning into this one. I believe another reason the world looks the way it does is because so many of us are actually scared of our own power, right? We look around and we see the way that power and money are used, and some part of us denies that. I look at my skin and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do what other people have done. So I'm going to just relinquish money and power because maybe I don't trust myself with it, right? And as we trust ourselves to create and hold our own pleasure and joy, which is a form of power, it feels like power in the body, we learn to trust ourselves to wield money and power in ways that move the world forward. And the people in this room need money and power, right? We need to be moving the world forward. We need to be wielding that. Okay. And so positive emotions can help us trust ourselves so that we are able to hold money and power and change the world. And I really want to name this, right? If we honor that positive emotion is needed for our survival as a species, I genuinely believe it is, for purpose, right? For creativity, for new opportunities. I can give you all the pictures of puppies and rainbows and all the things that I would love to. And I do not believe we can be in sustainable joy as a collective in a world where driving while Black or breathing while brown is a threat to well-being, dignity, and fundamental safety, right? Like we do need the infusion of positivity to get the energy up. We need to be able to source that. And I genuinely believe, right, that we need to begin owning our power and begin changing the timeline for a better world, right? And because that's going to increase our joy, right? Because good energy is going to be coming towards us. So I believe that changing the timeline of humanity is a beautiful way to increase joy for all of us. So this is work that I'm currently developing, and I just thank you for being here in this room and supporting it as it's coming out into the world, and we all begin to hold our power. And so I am going to show us a solution in just a moment. But before we do, I just want to say this really can be fun work. I know I just talked about some really deep things, and this is fun work, and it's how we light up the world together, right? This is how we light up the world together. And I would love to know from this section, right? Broaden and build, purpose, healing, power, positive emotions for survival, like what's opening up for you. You can just take a hand on your heart, a hand on your belly. Maybe you just take a nice deep breath in, your own ability to resource yourself, to be in joy, to be in pleasure, to be in power, and just noticing what's opening up for you. Hmm. All right. And I'm going to stop the share and I'll take shares in the chat, but I will also take shares out loud. And we have Anisha. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that last part of in the slide where you said a lot of us and a lot of people find themselves scared to come into their power. And I was just thinking about like my work and the purpose behind it. I really just had like in within myself while you were talking and just thinking about the question, this kind of like Ace of Cups, like a chalice within me, but it was really warm and just like steady bubbling, like not really overboard, just like a steady heat of warmth of like warm water in this chalice. And the sense of like I I just know that I serve anyone and everyone, you know, when I think about it, there really is no limit to the people that I want coming to me for my intuition, my communication, and my healing because it it is what I want to do is empower people, right? To be able to trust themselves, right? And go into the world and do like as they please and as they see fit as far as like who they want to be in the world. So that's what came out, I think, when I thought
Yeah.
about what you were
And
saying.
I'm really hearing too, and maybe let me know if I'm getting this right. I'm hearing like the warm bubbling. So I'm actually hearing like the joy inside of you. So I'm hearing you create a container of joy inside of yourself. And from that, that there was like an increased capacity.
Yeah,
Oh, there's no limit to the amount of people that I could actually help when it's coming from that resourced, bubbling, warm, overflowing cup. Am I getting that
yeah,
right?
it does. It feels very steady. Exactly. It feels very steady and like what I can also offer like the people I come across, right? Because I have something to offer them. Like, would you like a sip of this? Like warm mead, like the old school saying, some warm mead to drink of. Yeah. So
Right. I love that. Yes. So it's like we feel resourced inside of ourselves. We feel our own power. And we have the energy and the capacity then to share it with others. That's so beautiful, Anisha. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate
mhm.
that. Amazing. And Kathleen writes in the chat, the alchemy of transmuting fire from reaction into volcanic creative force, and that joy is the fuel to build and heal our world. Amazing. And Melissa writes, lots landing, pulling the strands together. Yes, I know there's a lot here. So I appreciate that. So you're processing it, and there'll be a space at the end to kind of put in those final processings. And Wendy says, this is so beautiful. It's mirroring my recent research into the African worldview and the Tudor times, right? Joy is so important. And like, what if we could pull that work forward as well? Like, wouldn't that be delicious? We have Valerie.
But what I'm present to right now is the impact of racism on how Black people of color feel about themselves. Like there's a layer of I can't do, I'm not enough. We all have this, I'm not, we're not worthy, but it just had me present to the work. Because if I'm not able as a coach to actually explore racism in my work, I'm missing a big, big part around how people feel with regard to low self-esteem, lack of confidence. I do this work in the world, but I tell you, I have not brought this into my coaching. I don't want to miss the impact of racism on how we see ourselves in the world. Most of my clients are people of color. I just have to say that because that really hit me deep, Anna, in my heart. It hit me deep. And yeah, so thank you so much for this conversation. This is really deep, Anna.
I'm feeling this. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, and we need your clients to know that they have power, right? And we need them to be able to wield money and power, right? To be able to move our world forward. So I just love, because I know you do anti-racism work, like in your work, right? And yet, how is it actually affecting clients, and how can we use it in ways to up level power?
Last quick
Yeah.
thing. I've touched on it, but I haven't dug deep into it. I've touched on it on the surface, but not deeply. I just have to say I want to go deep.
All right. We are standing with you to go deep. And you're such a joyful person, because I know you really well, right? You're such a joyful person. And so like, right, that it could be both, right? Because this is the thing we forget too, is the joy of our ancestors. Our ancestors were wired for joy, right? They needed it for their survival too. And we need to be able to bring that forward too. And that is a form of power, right? And so really like that we can hold the pain and we can hold the power and we can hold the joy and we can hold all of it and we can move this effing world forward. Yeah. So just really standing with you, Valerie. Thank you so much for that. Okay, I have one more section that I do need to get to. So I'm going to take one more share from Kat because I know you had your hand up, and then I'm going to move on. If we have more time, then I'll take shares after the next section because I want to make sure that I give you everything I have. So Kat, go ahead.
Hi. So I was just going to say that I love the idea of not being myopic and having a big picture view of what's happening and how that can change everything. Because I've been listening to two ladies from Oklahoma. They have a podcast, and it's really interesting their perspective. They talk about their community, and they talk about racism. They talk about just everything. And then they put it into context, big picture of what they see and what they believe, and it just makes you want to just stand up and cheer because all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, I get it. And they're not mocking the people around them, they're actually just trying to explain that it's myopic thinking. It's looking at your feet and saying, this is where I am, but not looking around you. Oh, but look at what, look at all my friends are all different from different backgrounds. I need to accept everybody. It's just very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And like this big picture thinking, how it really moves the world forward. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Kat. I really appreciate that. Okay, amazing. And I know there were a few other hands, but I'm just going to keep going so that we can get in everything. And just reading a couple from the chat, being in partnership with my grief and joy, allowing the trust and power so I can empower others. Beautiful. Hope, possibility, the importance of making this a daily practice. These elements can create a positive feedback loop. Thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you all for being with these beautiful topics that move our world forward. So we kind of understand, right? Hopefully at this point, we're beginning to understand the power of positive emotions. So why the F don't we do it? Like, why is this not our daily practice? Why is this not in schools? Like, why is this not done? Okay. And there's a couple of reasons. So we are wired for positive emotion, and yet many of us don't actually have language for it. Just like I explained, my client, right? When we teach kids emotions, we don't actually teach them how pleasure, how joy, how goodness feel in their body, right? We might know what a shoulder ache feels like or a headache feels like, or what it feels like when we're nervous or tense, but we might not know what it feels like when we feel pleasure and deliciousness. So a lot of times we just really don't have language for it. And we also don't know how to make it feel safe and fun. Okay. So practicing language, right? So many of us have never learned the beautiful language of our bodies, and especially in terms of what feels good to us. And maybe we haven't had permission to do that. Like even like Valerie said, like, who are you to do that, right? We haven't had permission to do that. And what I learned on my journey to joy, so as I told you, I worked with a somatic psychotherapist, and I would sit, in that chair, and we were doing it in Spanish, which I was very fluent at the time, but it was not my first language. So I would sit in that chair. I had 100 words for how bad I felt, for how depression felt. And I would sit in that chair and I would, try to tell him and translate it. And at some point I was like, what if I just learned the language for me being confident and happy and powerful and in my pleasure? What would happen? And it changed things quickly. Okay. So what I learned is language makes the unconscious conscious, right? And we know this as transformers, right? But when we learn to speak the exquisite language of our own bodies, it allows us to create more of these positive emotional experiences with more ease. So if I know what joy and pleasure feel like to me and I can name them, my body begins to register it and actually look for more opportunities to create that. The other thing I learned, right, is we are relational beings. And so being witnessed in this process has a huge impact on our ability to transform. So I've given this work to hundreds of people and I've told them how important it is. And they've said, yes, I understand how important it is. And guess, guess who were the people that actually transformed? It was the people when I made a virtual journal for them to write down their experiences of joy, and I read it and I would comment on it. those were the people who actually had the transformation. So we don't learn language by ourselves. We learn it to relate to other beings. So it really is important to learn this in a shared context, I find. Okay. So making it safe and fun. Okay. So many of us have been shut down for our joy, right? Perhaps it's been linked to past trauma or, something challenging happened right after a moment of joy, so it doesn't feel safe. I grew up with depressed parents, so if I was happy, like not okay, right? It was very bad. So some of us have been shut down for that, or we just kind of feel this fear that it's going to get taken away. Joy is actually one of the most vulnerable emotions, and so we actually make a choice not to feel it. Okay. And so just being in our joy can be an act of resilience. Just want to name that. All right. So a little bit of sometimes what's happening is we can look back at positive psychology, and I want to name this as Western positive psychology because all indigenous cultures kind of have a positive psychology inherently as part of the culture. So this is our Western view of positive psychology. It first came from research on learned helplessness and depression. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit of a history and then we'll look at the solution. But this is kind of what's happening and why it's actually so hard for us to feel the positive emotions. Okay, so we're going to look at learned helplessness and we're going to look at Dr. Martin Seligman, the dog torturer. And I'm kind of kidding, but I'm kind of not kidding. He did these experiments in the 60s when we had different regulations. So he really did torture dogs. Okay. So in these experiments, they would put dogs in cages and then they would open the cage. So the dog would feel joy, right? Like, oh my God, I can be free. I can go wag my tail. I can go like pee on something, like this experience of joy. I'm going to go be free. But they would create shocks. They would create shocks on the bottom of the cage. So when the dog tried to find its joy, it would get shocked, it would get hurt, and it couldn't leave the cage. Okay. And for so many of us, that is what our joy feels like. It's been shut down in some way. And then what happened is they would take the shocks away and so many of the dogs just wouldn't leave. And they do this research with elephants too. If you put a chain on a baby elephant, it learns it can't leave. And then it grows up and it could totally leave. It's a big elephant and it's just learned to stay. Okay. And so what Dr. Martin Seligman found is, right, that there was this idea of learned helplessness. Right. 25% of the dogs gave up really quickly and 50% learned pretty quickly as well. And he published all this research and it went into depression research and all the things. It was decades later. Decades later. And I think this is important to notice because it's okay if your ideas take a little while. So decades later, he began to ask, wait, what about the other 25% of dogs? What about them? And this was actually how Western positive psychology was born. He was like, oh my God, if we could train people to be helpless, maybe we could train them to have their power. And so I like to call this learned power and joy. And so that is really what we're trying to do with our joy practice is really like do these practices that teach us how to feel power and joy in our own body and how it feels safe, right? Because we might have gotten that shock before. And I work with a lot of, especially in the past, I don't quite as much anymore, but all of my beginning clients had something that I call emotional sensitivity, which is feeling emotions as very strong physical sensations in the body. Okay. And I find that emotional sensitivity can come from being an empath, it can come from being highly sensitive, or it can come from being a starseed, right? Maybe feeling that your soul is born in a place that isn't Earth and not feeling like the sense of belonging here. And so there's just this way that emotions are picked up and felt really strongly in the body. And what I found is that this trait would make learned helplessness easier to learn, right? So one bad thing happens and we don't do it anymore, right? Like we learned, we just need one shock and we're never trying to go out of that cage. But what I also learned, right, is that even though it can have us feel helplessness more quickly, it can actually give us this amazing capacity to develop joy. So if you have clients or kids or team members who you just are a little more sensitive than some of the other people on your team, right, just know that they actually have this amazing capacity for joy, maybe even more than other people. Because just like learned helplessness can be learned, joy can actually be learned like so, so well. So so how we solve this, right? So many of us are not doing it because it doesn't feel safe, and we just want to practice, right? We want to practice. And so you might have seen these on Facebook or things like this. It's been going around a lot. There's this idea of glimmers, right? And this actually came from Deb Dana. She was, or she is, I believe, a social worker. And so she encountered a lot of trauma, and she wrote this book about working with the nervous system and trauma. And she developed this term, glimmers. And this comes from Helen Marie, who kind of put these into these beautiful, a little guide, right? Is we just notice these tiny moments of awe and we allow them to spark our joy and evoke inner calm. And they, these micro moments, right, cause these tiny mood shifts, and they send cues of safety to our nervous system, and they bring feelings of ease and contentment, right? They allow us to feel hope. And so, what we're doing in our joy practice is we're just beginning to notice those moments, notice them, right? So that our nervous system can be strengthened by them, so we can hold that container for ourselves, for this world, for our clients, right? And we're just helping the nervous system register and name pleasure or authentic, heartfelt, a positive emotion so that it becomes authentic, so it becomes genuine, not toxic, and so it really supports us. So that is my solution for you. That is not the only way we will change the world, but it is certainly one of the ways we can change the world together. And I believe we're going even deeper, right? I believe as we tap into our positive emotions, we are finding our sacredness, right? We're actually finding this part in us that is sacred. And as we allow that space for others, right, we are holding that sacredness for them. And I love this quote: the way you alchemize a soulless world is by treating everyone as if they are sacred until the sacred in them remembers. So, thank you for doing this sacred, beautiful work. I'm going to take a few shares, and then I want to make sure we have time for our prize wheel. We have a beautiful prize today. But really just maybe just giving yourself a hug. This is deep work. Like, like like it sounds so fun, but it is deep work. So what's really opening up for you about the beautiful language of the body, about learned power and joy, or any final insights from our time together? Just noticing. And I'm going to stop the share. Kat says, I just looked at my dog laying near me, such a glimmer. I love that. Rose writes, love that. Being in my joy is an act of resilience. Beautiful, Rose. Yes. Yes, Sandra.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for participating. The energy here is so cool. What I'm finding as I'm listening is how our world has been set up to not even understand what joy really is. If we pit ourselves one versus the other, the winner feels, quote, joy. And it's so toxic. It's not sacred. It's not real. It's not authentic. And when you're talking, Anna, I just feel so dropped in. Like I'm just dropped into the true, the real thing. And I have tears. And you woke me up to realizing, oh my gosh, I'm in the system. I knew I was. And I'm a social worker. I'm in private practice. And I just keep going, what am I doing? What am I doing? Now I know what I'm doing. Now I know I am teaching that inner powerful joy, and it makes me cry of all the people I can help now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandra. I have chills. Thank you for this. Yeah, and thank you for the deep work that you do as a social worker. It's so needed. And thank you for bringing in, right, the power and the joy into that work so people can transform. I really appreciate that. And having these shared spaces really is magic. It really is magic because then we do the practices and then we get the magic and then the world changes. So thank you for that. Arlie, yeah.
One of the things I put in the chat was that your bravery sparks bravery in others, so just honoring your willingness to, say like this can help heal racism, like you're opening up one of those Pandora boxes, right? But you sparked me when you were at one point in the journey, like opening up for me on the round before, after theory of positive emotion, reminders of things past, like maybe start a choir doing spiritual anthems, or to actually coach, the way that I really want to inspire women who want to change the world. Like, so it's not just about, having a vision and having a juicy next chapter. It's like, I want to spark women who want to change the world and make it one that works for everyone. And so, like, maybe I should go where that energy is, if I am going to start coaching again, and just really help light that fire with joy for what's possible to make this world one that, to not even make, but to envision, hold space for, be a spark for a world that works for everyone,
Wow, Arlie, I really feel that. And just so much gratitude for that. Especially at this time in the world, we have to start speaking our truth, even if it's imperfect, even if we're not saying 100% right, like it's just the time. And right, helping people with their vision might spark them into what they want to bring in the world so they can go together. So I love that. But I'm so standing for you to coach these women who are effing changing the world, because I feel your magic and your power. So Arlie, I'm so standing with you for that. Thank you.
The bravery. Yeah. So thank you.
Right. And our bravery sparks other people's, right? Because when me standing for, no, this is what I believe, this is the world that I'm going to have, then sparks you to be like, you know what? I'm actually going to coach the people I want to coach. Yeah. Beautiful, Arlie. Okay, we are at the end of our time. I will stay on for more questions and comments, but I want to make sure that I'm honoring everyone's time who needs to hop off. So we're gonna have our prize wheel in just a moment, because we need some joy, right? We have some deep stuff here. So we need some joy to light us up. We're gonna have our prize wheel. And I just want to remind you how we started this. What if there was a secret tool to tap into your innate magic and authentic power, to magnetize money and bask in love? Joy is also the frequency of money, right? We when we're in joy, we actually attract money, but then we have to be willing to own our power to keep the money, like to be able to wield the money. So it is two parts to that. Okay, a secret tool to support your client's success, to transform hate and racism in our world. Okay, this secret tool, hopefully you have a good sense of this. And your magic matters. You have the power to anchor us into a different timeline. You really do. One where everyone in our world has access to their power and human dignity, and we can come together and move humanity forward for our species and all the other sentient beings on our beautiful earth. You have that power. You have that magic. Let's use it. All right. With that, we are going into our prize wheel. Okay. Sue is our amazing winner. So that is very exciting. And if you have any questions, you can always email me at hello@coachannareidenbach.com. I know there was one more comment, and anyone else who just wants to debrief anything, I'll stay on for another like 5-10 minutes.
My question that I was going to ask before, or just a thing that I have struggled with for a long time, is my cultural cringe at being English, at being I don't know, just that heritage of colonialism and white supremacy and all the shit. So the being able to hold both, and my capacity is increasing, but that was the little glitch that I actually need to pay a bit more attention to.
I love that. Is it okay if I speak to this?
Surely.
Or is that okay? Because this is something I've been holding as well. So there has not been really good models of how we wield money and power for a really long time in our world. And so we do need to do our work of that inner kind of colonizer, inner oppressor work, because it's actually stopping us from holding our power. We're like, oh, I don't want to wield money and power because I'm scared, of what I might actually do with it. I don't want to cause the same pain. And so it is something that sometimes we do need to work through with a coach or in something to really honor that wound. And because it is a wound. It actually is a wound inside of us. And we need to honor that wound so that we can trust ourselves to be able to wield money and power, because we need that to be able to move our world forward. Thank you so much for that question. And because we need to trust our own power. We have to be able to trust our own power, or this world is not going to move forward. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. Beautiful. Any other last kind of insights or thoughts here as we look at how to integrate joy or how to move our world forward?
It's not a question, just a acknowledgement of your generosity as your kind of invitation for us to rise and to really just take this in, receive the gift, and share, And so I just want to acknowledge your generosity.
I appreciate that, Arlie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do want to and have to acknowledge you, Anna. To take this on is just a powerful, courageous, important model. And I really, really appreciate your strength and your voice and your commitment, because we can change the world. You know what I'm saying? We got to talk about this stuff and work through it. We can work through it. I believe we can.
I believe we can too. And thank you. Thank you for that, Valerie. And I really want to acknowledge Dara, who's here. She actually gave me a session beforehand because I was like, can I really say this? At this time in the world, can I say this out loud? And Samara gave me actually a beautiful session around this too. Like, we need to do our inner work to be able to bring out our ideas with courage, right? Because I was like, can I? And they were like, yes. Yes, you can, and you better. And just thank you. Thank you for doing this work. Thank you for moving the world forward. Thank you for opening your hearts. Thank you for learning something new. Thank you for having this discussion together. Thank you for being in this room. Thank you for your shares and your comments and just everything. Just, it is a dream come true to be sharing this work with you. I know there's so many things in the comments. Let me just see. Stephanie says, I second that about Anna's generosity and courage. Such a brilliant role model. Thank you, Valerie. Arlie says, my name was so close to yours. Arlie almost got it. Sue, love the gift wheel spin excitement generation. Beautifully said, says Dara, thank you for giving voice to those feelings. It's like why I love circle work so much and sing in circle choir. And there's so many more beautiful ones. Thank you so much. And I will see all of you so soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for tuning in to the Neuroscience of Magic Play Shop. I would love to hear your biggest insight in the comments down below in YouTube. It would mean the world to me. And as we close up, I just wanted to let you know that I am dedicating this space to someone who is very, very special to me. I could not have created this. I could not have found my path and helped all the people I did without the support of Hector Osvaldo Riestra. So thank you so much for your unwavering belief in my courage and my power. And thank you for helping us move the world forward. All right, with that, I hope you have a beautiful day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And I hope that you're able to bring magic and sparkles to yourself and to all that you touch.